Hi guys, in this masterclass tutorial I'm going to show you how you can master and enhance portrait edits in Photoshop. And I'm going to start right now. Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. My name is James, and if it is the very first time to this channel and you want to learn all about Photoshop, Lightroom and everything photography related, start now by subscribing and hitting the bell so you don't miss anything. So in this video guys is my masterclass tutorial all about how to master and enhance portrait edits in Photoshop. Now there are so many different techniques and effects to go through when you're regarding portrait edits. So today I'm going to break it down into this really simple masterclass tutorial all about how to understand and master all different types of portrait photography. Now I'm going to break in this video down into 8 separate parts, and I'm going to have the timestamps available just here so you can skip to the part that will help you out most. So firstly, I'm going to show you how you can remove spots and blemishes on the model's face or body. And then I'm going to move on how you can create a beautiful high-end skin retouching effect to create beautifully smooth professional skin. Then I'm going to move on to how you can enhance freckles if the model or the subject has freckles on their face. Then I'm going to show you how you can really enhance the eyes and add colour and contrast. Then I'm going to show you how you can add colours to the lips to add a lipstick type effect, and also whiten teeth to get that real professional look and to make them really pop in your photos. And then I'm going to show you how you can add volume and colour to hair. And then lastly, I'm going to show you just a few kind of finishing tips to really make your photos pop either on Instagram or on your portfolio. And I'll be using the Camera Raw filter. So if you'd like to have a look at any of the pre-selected photos that I'm going to be using in this tutorial, I'm going to be using 8 in total, then go ahead to the link in the description and you'll be able to download them all free from there. But without further ado guys, let's get started. So the first technique I'm going to show you guys is removing spots and blemishes, and this is really easy and we're only going to need a single layer and using a single tool in Photoshop. So the first photo, if you want guys and load up the first photo, or again guys you can always use a photo of your choice, I'm going to be working with this photo today and I got it from Pexels.com. Now this is a perfect representation of areas that we want to remove, such as spots or any blemishes. Now again, when talking about this particular effect, you don't want to remove too much of the model's spots or blemishes, or you just want to remove any minor imperfections, things that will be temporary on the model's face. You don't want to remove too much because it might affect the model's physical personality and it might be a detriment to the image. So again, try and remove as much as you want, but don't go too far. So in this particular photo, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove these small minor spots that you can see on the model's face. And then I'm also going to try and clear up the skin just a little bit using the spot healing brush tool. Now the spot healing brush tool is a great tool when it comes to just wanting to reduce minor sections or imperfections on either the photo or the model. Now the spot healing tool, basically what it does is it uses the content aware feature that is within Photoshop. Now the content aware feature is an incredibly powerful tool where sections of highlighted, what it will do is the computer or Photoshop will work out using the surrounding pixels what should be replaced. So for instance, if there was a spot which is red surrounded by like a skin color, what it will do is it will work out the area that wants to be removed, such as the spot, and then it will fill it in with the skin color from surrounding pixels. And I'm going to show you how that works now. So as we've got 2 sections here. So I'm just going to make a new layer just to show you the areas that I'm going to be removing. I'm just going to highlight a nice big brush. So the areas that I want to remove is a section there and also a section here as well. And then maybe minor kind of imperfections on the forehead. Now what we can do is we'll zoom in to quite close. We're going to go over to the spot healing brush tool. So if we click and hold, you can see we've got the subsection here, and you can see the very top one, which is called spot healing brush tool. You might also be called the patch tool, but if you click and hold on that icon, it will break into the sub menu where you can select it. So what we'll do is we'll select it like so, and a very similar brush will appear. So if I just turn that layer off, we're going to make sure we're working on the background layer. Now you could get into a good habit of pressing Command J just to duplicate the background layer. So if you do make any mistakes on this layer, what you can do is just simply revert back to that previous layer by deleting your current layer, and then you've got the original photo. So you don't end up having to open either a new document or a new photo, so you're kind of working in a non-destructive way. So if you can get into good practice doing that, I find it's a lot quicker and more kind of efficient working in that particular way in Photoshop. So technically you're always working on non-destructive layers. Right, so what we're going to do is we're just going to click and hold, and as you can see, this small little grey area will appear, and that is the area that Photoshop is going to choose to change using Content Aware. And all you need to do is once you finish, if you just click off your mouse, as you can see, that area has gone, and it is simple and as quick as that. Now, if you make the area too big, Photoshop might kind of not know what to do, and it will kind of fill it in with areas, and it's not necessarily perfect. So the smaller the area that you choose, Spot Healing Brush Tool, then the more precise it will be in the end result. So if what we'll do is we'll just zoom up to the top section here, and so you can see she's got another kind of little spot there, just in between her forehead. So we can see that area there. What we're going to do is I'm just going to click and hold, and as you can see, hopefully that area will disappear. And as you can see, and it's done a really good job. I must say the Content Aware feature in Photoshop 2020 is really, really good, and it's getting better with every single update. So what we're going to do is just remove small areas here. So I'm going to make the brush a little bit smaller. And we're going to click and hold, and as you can see, it is removing this section really easily. So what we'll do is I'm just going to go along to all of the areas that I feel imperfections to make the skin look a little bit smoother before we go ahead and create the skin softening effect. Lovely, so once you've finished, obviously what you've done is you've created a new layer. So all you'll need to see is the before and after. You'll just need to turn off the current layer and it will reveal the layer below. So what we'll do is we'll do the before and after, and as you can see, we have really cleaned up the face, but still kept a natural look to the photo. So next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you can create this really high-end skin softening effect to create a real professional look in your photos. Right, so once you've removed all of the main larger spots and blemishes on the face, now we can create a high-end skin retouching effect. Now this effect is really easy to do, and you'll only need to do a few things in Photoshop to get a real professional look. Now you want to make sure that you again do remove all the spots and blemishes first before you create this skin effect, as what it will do is it will just create multiple layers, and you're going to have to remove all of the larger spots and blemishes on every single layer because it will show through on this effect. So make sure you get rid of all of them first before you go ahead and create this effect. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up the photo that we were working just previously, but what I've done is I've removed all of the larger spots and blemishes. So what we want to do now is to create the high-end skin retouching effect. So what we can do is what we want to do first is to create a duplicate background layer. Again, just so we have a photo to go back to, so we don't have to create a new document. So we can press Command J on our keyboard to duplicate the background layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly call this skin effect, just so we don't get lost in the later on the tutorial. So what we want to do now is we just want to invert all of the colors. So we're going to press Command I on our keyboard, and that will invert all black colors to white or any colors from the opposite side of the spectrum. So as you can see, we've created this effect. Now what we want to do is to create a high pass filter. So we're going to go to Filter, we're going to go to Other, and then we're going to go to High Pass. Now high pass is a great way of creating this effect as it highlights spots and blemishes and what we're going to remove later. So the radius pixels that we want to create for this high pass is 20. So go ahead and select 20 in the radius selection there, and then all you need to do is go ahead and press OK. But as you can see, it's completely affected the image. But all you need to do is change the blending mode and add a few more effects, and you'll be really surprised of how well this effect works. So what we're going to do is go to our skin effect here. We're going to change the blending mode from normal to vivid light. And as you can see, we can start seeing the model again. But as you can see, it's affecting the entire image. So what we need to do now is to choose the size of the blemishes that we want to remove. And we can do this by creating a blur layer. So we're going to go up to Filter, we're going to go to Blur, I'm going to go to Gaussian blur. Now the smaller the blur, the smaller the imperfections it will remove. But don't forget, skin also has a texture to it. So if you make it a blur of 0, it will remove all of the texture. So you'll need to find a balance between the texture and the blemishes of the photo. So in this particular photo, let's see if you see, make it smaller. As you can see, all of the blemishes are visible, and you're not going to be able to see any of the texture. But if we increase that to, let's say, 10, as you can see, all of the blemishes are coming through. So you're going to have to find a balance between 10 and 1. So I'm going to go for, let's have a look. Let's go for 6 pixels, I think. Yeah, I think 6 pixels will work for this particular image. But again, this is different for every single image you work on. So now we've done that, as you can see, it's affecting the whole image, and it's ruining the lips, the eyes, and the hair. So what we're going to need to do is just choose specific areas that we want to create the skin effect on. And we can do that by creating a layer mask. So we're going to go down to our adjustment layers icon, and we're going to go and select layer mask, which is the square within the circle. But as you can see, it's still not, it hasn't changed anything. So we're going to have to create an invisible layer mask so we can paint into it. So at the moment it's white, which reveals. So we're going to want to change it to black, which conceals the information. So we can easily change it from white to black, yes, by changing it to invert colors. So we're going to press Command I on our keyboard, and that'll invert all of the white to black. And again, yes, it does work on layer masks. So once we've done that, we're going to want to select the brush tool. So we're going to select B on our keyboard, or you can go ahead and find it on the left-hand side tools panel. And we want to lower the flow, which is the transparency of the brush. So we're going to lower the flow from 100 to around 20%. We want to make sure that we've got white as our foreground color, because again, remember, white reveals. So if it's a completely black layer mask, white will reveal the sections that we want it to. And then all you will need to do is paint over areas that you want to just enhance the skin. And as you can see, it's creating this brilliant effect. Now what you want to do is you want to make sure you remove any hard or contrast edges, such as eyes, lips, or hair, as it will create this really odd effect. This particular effect only works on skin, so do bear that in mind. So try and stay away from any hard edges. So if I go over the eye, as you can see, it's affected the eye. So you just want to go as close as you can, but not affecting any of like the eyebrows, for instance, or any of the hairline. So do try and stay away from those areas. Now, if you want to check areas that you have done in your layer mask, all you will need to do is press Alt and click on the layer mask. And as you can see, it pops up with what the layer mask looks like. And that's perfect to see if areas that you've missed or areas that you do want to cover. And to go back, simply, all you'll need to do is click back on the photo layer and it will revert back to the photo. That's quite a handy way of just working out areas that you want to fill using the layer mask. So it's a way of making layer masks visible. So all you'll need to do is just again go back onto the layer mask and just select all of the areas that you want to create the skin softening effect. Now again, if you're revealing too much information, you can always change the blur. So just revert back to the previous of this section of the tutorial, and all you'll need to do is just go back to and just change the blur factor. So remember, if the blur is 1% or 1 pixel, you're not going to, all the texture will be disappeared. But if you have it too high, all of the blemishes will start appearing. So it's a fine balance in between texture and blemish. Lovely. So if we do the before and after, as you can see, it's created this beautiful soft skin. But if you're still finding it a little bit too harsh, all you'll need to do is simply drop the opacity of that layer. So if we drop it all the way down to 0, then we can raise it up until you are happy with the result. And I think around 75 works best, as it still looks natural, but it adds a sense of professional look to your photo. So if you do the before and after, it's a very minor tweak, but it really does enhance the skin in your photos. Brilliant. So now I'm going to show you how you can enhance freckles on someone's face. Brilliant. So now the next effect I'm going to show you is how to enhance freckles on someone's face. Now the last two effects I showed you is how to kind of remove blemishes, including freckles, and that creates more of a professional look. But if you're after more of a natural look, maybe if you're out in the woods or maybe if you're in a particular studio and you are after this more natural look in your photos, then enhancing especially the freckles can really add to this effect. So what I'm going to do is open up photo 3, and again you can find it in the link in the description. What we want to do in this particular case is just enhance the freckles. As this particular photo, again if I zoom out, you can see is a lot more of a natural pose. So do take that into consideration if you are thinking of applying this effect versus the other two. So what we're going to do is we're just going to zoom in, and all we need to do to create this effect is just to create a black and white adjustment layer. So if we go down to our adjustment layers icon, I'm going to go up to black and white. Now you might think it's weird that we're trying to enhance the freckles. Why would we want to change the black and white? What we're going to do is we're going to use the adjustments in the black and white adjustment layer to our advantage simply by using the blending mode options. So we're going to go to our blending mode options, and instead of choosing normal, which keeps it black and white, we're going to go all the way to the bottom where we can select luminosity. Now luminosity is another word for brightness. So instead of using these adjustments here to change the black and white effect, it's going to change the luminosity of each of the color bands, which is incredibly handy. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look now. All of the skin tones are found in 2 colors, red and yellow, and adjusting these two will adjust the brightness and luminosity of the skin tones. Now as you can see, if we zoom in, the skin tones are predominantly yellow, where the freckles are predominantly red. So if we want the red freckles to appear more prominent within the photo, all we'll need to do is to reduce the yellow. So if we go to our yellow icon, like so, and we're just going to reduce it like so. And as you can see, the red is now starting to stand out versus the darker skin tones. So all you need to do is just move it around until you are happy with the result. Now you can also lower the reds as well, and again that will just make the freckles darker. So we'll go for something like so. But as you can see, it's affecting the entire image, and we don't necessarily want that to be the case. We just want to affect all of the freckles. And the best way to do this, I found, is by creating a layer mask. So we're going to go to our black and white adjustment layer, and we're going to need to change the adjustment layer again from white to black. And we can easily do this by pressing Command I on our keyboard. So that is going to be a common shortcut, Command I, which inverts colors. And it will invert colors either on the photo or in a layer mask. So it will change all of the layer mask from white, which is revealing all of it, to black, which will conceal all of it. Now we can paint in specific areas using the brush tool. So we'll go ahead and select our brush tool, which is B on our keyboard, or you can find it on the left hand side. What we'll do is we'll make sure we've got white selected as our foreground color, again because that reveals. And then we're also going to make sure we've got our flow to around 20%, which again is the transparency of the brush. And then all you'll need to do is paint over where you can see the freckles. Now again, you do want to avoid any other areas of that aren't skin, because you don't want to make them darker, especially, for instance, a lot of freckles are found on ginger hair, and again, because of ginger, it's got a lot of red in it, it's going to darken the hair slightly. So try and stay away from any contrasting edges, or especially hair. So we'll go ahead over this area now. Lovely. Now again, you can also do this on any other body part, but as this is a particular portrait masterclass, I'm just going to be working on faces in this particular tutorials. Lovely, so what we can do is we'll zoom out, we'll do the before and after, and as you can see, the freckles are really enhanced and it adds a real natural look to your photos. Now again, you can always add and detract the colours, so again, because this is a layer mask and it's non-destructive, all we need to do is to either decrease the colours so we can make them really pronounced, it's just simply by lowering the yellow, or we can make them less revealing by simply brightening it. But I find going for a darker look often works really well. So we can make them really dark, looking like that. And again, you can change them, all depending on your particular type of photo that you're working with and the style that you're going for. But there we go, guys. So that is how you can enhance the freckles. Next, I'm going to show you how you can enhance eyes and really make them pop in your photos by changing the colour. So in portrait photography, eyes are really, really important because usually it's the first thing a viewer or a reader will look at when they're either looking at it in a magazine or, for instance, online, especially on Instagram. And again, like if you ever speak to someone, usually you engage with eye contact. So it's kind of within human nature to look at someone's eyes. So getting the eyes just right, especially in photography, is really, really important. And especially when it comes to getting the eyes firstly in focus. So usually if you're taking a photo of a portrait of a model, you try and get the eyes in focus, and everything else will either be out of focus depending on your style, or everything will be in focus. Again, it all comes down to the photographer's discretion. But in this particular tutorial, I'm just going to show you how you can change the color and add contrast to the eyes to really make them pop and stand out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up photo 4. And as you can see, we've got a great photo here. And as you can see, the model's eyes are nice, clear, and in focus. So what we're going to do is we're just going to zoom into just one eye. And we're going to work on the right eye first. So as you can see, she's got lovely brown eyes and they're quite large, which again is perfect for this particular tutorial. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the eyes to blue, and then I'm going to add contrast. So the first thing I'm going to do first is add contrast. So what we're going to do is, if we want to add contrast, we're going to go to the curves adjustment layer. So go down to the adjustment layers icon, and we're going to go up to curves. Now what we want to do is we want to use the drag tool. Now, which is a really handy tool in Photoshop. If you don't understand the curves adjustment layer well, I still use it. It's just a handy way of selecting a particular luminosity and then just dragging upwards or downwards to increase or decrease its brightness. So we're going to go to the drag tool here, which is found right at the top just under the word preset. Click on that, and we're going to click on either the brown section of the eye. Click, and then we're going to drag upwards to brighten it. And what that'll do is that'll brighten the entire photo. And as you can see on the screen, as you can see, it is selected the area of luminosity that we have dragged. So we'll go ahead like so. Now, as you can do that, what we'll need to do is we'll just take the curves adjustment layer, we'll take the layer mask, and we'll press again Command I, and that will invert it from white to black, revealing and then turning it into a concealed layer mask. So we'll turn it to 100% transparent. And then what we want to do, zoom in quite close, go for something like this. We want to select the brush tool, so we'll go and select the brush tool like that. We want a very small brush. So we go and find it on the left hand side, and then there we go. And we want a nice soft brush, and we also want the flow down to 10%. And what we want to do now is, if I just create a new layer to show you guys what I mean, what we're going to want to do is, if we take the center and we take the outside of the eye, we want to draw lines outwards all the way like so, like this. So everywhere from where we can see the brown section of the eye, we want to draw outlines. So I'll show you what I mean. So we use this as a kind of a guide, and then what we're going to do is again just drop down the flow to 10%. We're going to draw outwards like so. Now, if you're finding it's not revealing it much, you can also increase the flow to where you can start seeing it coming through, just like so. So we're going to draw it along the roundness of the eye. And what the flow will do is it will just reduce the transparency of that brush. And you can paint over it, and what it will do is it will add texture, especially to the eye. And what it will do is it will just add contrast to the colour found within the iris. So that's usually the thing that pops out due to the colour. So we'll go like so, all the way around. So as you can see, if we do the before and after of each eye, the before and after, it's make that eye really pop, and it looks like it's added texture into the iris section, which is really cool. So we'll do the same with the left eye now. Now, if you do make a mistake, all you'll need to do is press X on your keyboard, and that will invert the colours from the background colour to the foreground colour on your left hand side, like so. So you can change, if it's white and black, it will change the brush from white to black, revealing / concealing that layer. Lovely. So once we've done it to both eyes, as you can see there, if we do the before and after, that's worked really well. Now, if you're finding it's still a little bit bright, all you'll need to do is just simply reduce the brightness like so. So go for something like a natural look there. Lovely. So what we'll need to do now is we can either increase the reflection colour, or we can add reflection colour to the reflections within the eye. Now obviously the eye has got like water over the front of it and it reflects a lot of light. And as you can see, this particular model, we can actually see an umbrella shape in the eye. So what we can do is we can really turn that to white using a white layer. So what we're going to do is go ahead and just create a new layer. We're going to go ahead and select white like so. And what we're going to do is just paint over that area with a big white brush. And we're going to do the same on the right side. Lovely. Now what we want to do is we just want to drop this to change the blending mode from normal to screen. And what screen will do is it will brighten all the pixels beneath it. Then what we want to do is go to layer 2, delete layer 1, go to layer 2, we want to double click and we want to bring up the blend if options. So we'll go to the blend if options like so, and as you can see the underlying layer, what we want to do is take the left hand side icon, which is the dark icon on the underlying layer, and drag it over to the right. And what it will do is it will just remove all of the pixels that reveal on a completely black object. And then all you'll need to do is to create more of a gradient look, is just Command Alt click on there and it will break apart those icons to create a gradient. And what that will do is it will just brighten up the reflection in the photo, making the reflection pop a little bit more. And as you can see, it has really made them pop. So all you'll need to do now is just reduce the opacity till you are happy. So I think 40% for that effect works really nicely. Lovely. So if we do the before and after, the eyes are really starting to take shape. But there's just one more effect I want to do, and that's changing the color. So at the moment they're brown, which kind of fits with the model, but I'm going to change them to kind of a bright blue, just so they really stand out in the photo. So what we're going to do is zoom in, and what we want to do is to create a new layer, and we want to change a color of your choice. So today I'm going to be choosing blue, but you can choose any color you like. So I'm going to choose this nice kind of pastel-y kind of blue. And all you'll need to do is paint over that iris section. So I'm going to go something like so. Lovely. And then all you need to do is just do the other side as well. All the way around. Try not to get it on the white section of the eye, or try not to get it on any of the skin tones. So you should end up with an effect that looks similar to this. So all you'll need to do now is simply change the blending mode from normal to color. So we'll go to our blending mode options and we'll drop it down all the way to color. Lovely, and as you can see, it has changed the color of the eyes. So all you'll need to do now is to create a layer mask for this and just remove any area that spills over to the area that you don't want it to. Lovely. Again, you can always paint in any areas that you missed. Lovely. Now, if you're finding it's a little bit too bright, all you need to do is simply reduce the saturation. So we can make an adjustment layer of hue and saturation. We go to right click on that layer, so we turn it into a clipping mask, so it only affects that layer below, and we'll just need to reduce the saturation of that layer, just to make them just a little bit less bright. So now if we zoom out, as you can see, we do the before and after. Her eyes really do pop now, and we've changed the colour to really make them pop in your photos. So next guys, I'm going to show you how you can enhance the lips and either add lipstick or add natural tones in the model. So the next technique I'm going to show you is how to enhance the lips. Now again, these are very similar to the eyes. It's something you want to take due care and detail with them, as they are something that are very important in the photo, especially if you want to add colour or if you want to remove any blemishes. So do take your time when you are applying anything to the main features of someone's face, as it really does change the way someone looks at a photo. So what we're going to do is open up photo 5 in the link in the description, and as you can see, what we're going to do is we're going to work on this photo. And as you can see, we've got this girl with great lips here, they're nice and bright, but what we're going to do is we're going to try and change the colour of them and then also remove any blemishes. So the first thing we're going to do is just going to duplicate the background layer. So we're going to go ahead and press Command J, and this will allow us to go back to the original photo without opening a new document, just in case you make any mistakes. So once we've done that, what we want to do is we want to remove any of the blemishes. And we want to do this first before we change any colours. So we're going to go to our spot healing brush tool, and it's very similar to the very first technique I showed you. We're just going to remove any harsh blemishes on the lips. Lovely. Now again, you don't want to go too crazy because you still want to have the physical personality of the model to come through, and you don't want to change or alter it too drastically. So once we've done that, this is now where we want to add in some of the colour. So we can either use it as a lipstick effect, or you can add more of a natural colour to the photo. It is completely up to your personal preference. But today I'm going to add in a nice bright colour to resemble natural lipstick. So what we're going to do is we just need to create a selection of either the top or bottom lip, depending on the brightness difference. And as you can see in this particular photo, the brightness of the bottom lip is a lot darker than the top lip. So we're going to have to split these into two separate layers. So we're going to go ahead, I'm going to choose the brush tool or any selection tool of your choice. So you can either choose the lasso tool, or maybe you can choose the quick selection tool. But I find the most precise way of making cutouts or selections is by using the pen tool. And I've actually created a masterclass tutorial all about how to create cutouts and selections. And you should go ahead and watch it. It might give you a few insights of how I work and how I find the best way of creating Photoshop techniques. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the bottom lip. So we're going to go around the edge very carefully and just select the area that we want. So we're going to go ahead around like so. Being very careful to select the area that we want and not go over the edge. Lovely, and then we'll head back, and to finish off the selection, all we need to do is press OK. And there we go, we've got our work path there. So now we need to go and turn this work path into a selection. So we're going to go to our paths, we're going to go to our work paths, we're going to double click. That will save the work path, press OK, just in case we ever need to go back to it. We're going to press Command and click on the thumbnail, and that will turn it from a work path into a selection. Now we can go back to our layers. Now we want to add an ever so slight feather to it, as no particular photo has a 100% sharp edge, and this particular photo has got maybe a 3 to 4 pixel feather. So we're going to want to resemble that within our selection. So we're going to go to Select, we're going to go to Modify, and we're going to go to Feather. And I think for this photo, I think I'm going to add a 3 pixel feather. So we'll go ahead and click OK. Now we want to add in the colour. So we're going to want to add in a bright colour and a dark colour to resemble the highlights and shadows. And then we're going to use the blend if options to kind of blend them in together to create this kind of HDR, high contrast look, to add a natural look to the lips. So what we're going to do is go to our adjustment layers icon, and we're going to go all the way up to solid colour, making sure we've got our selection activated. When we click, it will create a layer mask of that selection, which is really handy. Now we're going to do is go down to a nice bright red colour, and we're going to choose a dark red to start off with, because we're going to work on the shadows first. And we're going to go ahead and press OK. Now what we want to do is change the blending mode from normal to multiply, as multiply darkens all of the colours instead of screen, which brightens them, which will be the highlight section. So now we've done that, what we need to do is we just need it to affect all of the shadow areas of the lips and not affecting any of the highlights. And we can do this by using the blend if layer. So we're going to double click on that layer, and what we want to do is you can see on the underlying layer here in our blending layer stylizing box, we want to remove it from the highlights. So we're going to see this underlying layer in our layer stylizing box. We want to drag it over the whites over to the left, and that will remove it from all of the highlighted areas, like so. So we'll go for somewhere like so. So it's only affecting the shadows. Now as you can see, it's quite a harsh layer. So what we'll need to do is press Alt on our keyboard, and that will split that icon into two sections. And as you can see, it has created a gradient in between that. Lovely, so we've added colour to the shadows. Now what we'll need to do is add colour to the highlights. So what we're going to do is Command J, that will duplicate that layer. And now what we want to do is choose a bright colour. So we'll go ahead and select a bright colour like so. But what we want to do is change the blending node not from multiply, but now we want to change it to screen. So we'll go from multiply down to screen, and this will affect just the highlight sections. So now instead of choosing the shadow areas we want to be kept and highlights to removed, we want to keep the highlights and remove the shadows. So we're going to double click on that layer, and all we need to do is just reverse the underlying layer options. So drag the white back all the way to the right, and we're going to drag the shadows this time over to the right. So we remove the highlight areas like so, and then again press Alt on your keyboard to split those icons apart like so. And depending on where you move it, or depending on what look you're going for. So I'm going to go for probably something like so. Now, if you want to add more color to it, all you'll need to do is double click and you can move the brightness around. And I think I'm going to make it slightly darker and go for a nice bright color like so. Lovely. So as you can see, it's added this really nice glossy look to it. And again, if you're finding it's a little bit too dark or a little bit too bright, you can simply change it like so. So I'm going to go for a slightly darker look. Lovely. So as you can see, we've done the bottom lip. So if we do the before and after, we've added in a great amount of colour. But again, this works with any type of colour. So if you want to add more of a pink hue to it, or maybe a green or blue, go for something quite dramatic, you can easily do that just by changing the colour in the colour picker tool. But I'm going to go for more of a natural look in this particular photo. But be completely creative and go for any colour of your choice. So now what we need to do is just do the exact same for the top lip. So go ahead, and what we're going to do is firstly I'm going to save these into a group, and we're going to call this bottom. And what we need to do is just simply create a new selection and just create a layer for the top layer, lip. So go for something like so. And again, because you're making a selection, what you can do is actually sculpt the lips into a shape that is very appealing, which is this kind of natural looking shape like so. Lovely. And again, whatever kind of feather you use for the bottom, we're going to want to use for the top as well. So we're going to go to our paths, we're going to double click to confirm it, we're going to command click on that layer to turn it into a selection, we're going to add a feather, so select, modify feather, 3 pixels, and then what we want to do is go to our adjustment layers icon, make sure we've got the selection activated, and we're going to go and select a color. I'm going to go and select a nice dark red again. And all we need to do is we'll just simply change it from normal to multiply, and then we'll just need to change the blend if options again, guys. So remember, for multiply, we want to just have it in the shadows, so we want to remove it from the highlights. So just drag the highlights over to the left. And as you can see, it's revealing it in the highlights. And then just command click, alt click, sorry, to break those icons apart to create a gradient of that effect. Lovely. And then all you'll need to do is just remember to press Command J to duplicate that layer. We want to change it from multiply to screen because now we want to affect just the highlights. And then what we want to do is create a brighter color. So we'll go for a nice bright red. And then all you'll need to do is just, instead of changing it from the highlights, we're going to remove it from the shadows. We'll do something like so. And then again, alt click on that icon to split those icons apart. And we'll add in maybe a little bit more color in this particular effect as it's a bit brighter. Lovely. And I think what I'm going to do is just going to brighten it up a bit further. Lovely. Right. So if we zoom out, we'll Command G to select those into a group, and we'll call those top. So what we'll do is we'll zoom in, and we'll do the before and after. Wow, I am really liking the lips, and they are really popping in this photo. And there we go, guys. So that is how you can enhance and add color to the lips to really make them pop in your photos. Next, I'm going to show you how you can whiten and enhance teeth to really make them stand out, especially against the beautiful lips that you've just created. Lovely, so now we've enhanced the lips, what we're going to want to do now is to enhance and whiten the teeth. And we can do this really easily, simply by creating one adjustment layer. So we're going to go to our photo, which is photo 6. And what I've done is I've just cropped it down just so you can see the teeth, to make it easier for you guys to navigate in my tutorials. So what we want to do is just to whiten all of these teeth to create a lovely contrast between the bright red lips and the white teeth. So what we're going to do is firstly, we want to create a selection just so we affect the teeth. Because what we're going to do is we're going to remove all of the colour from the teeth, and we don't want it to affect the rest of the photo. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the pen tool to create a selection of the teeth. But in your particular case, you can either use the quick selection tool, you can use the magic wand, or you can use any other selection tool in Photoshop to create the selection. But I find the pen tool is the most precise way and it's the most customizable way. And I've actually created a tutorial all about how to create cutouts. So if you are interested in that particular tutorials, then go ahead and have a look. It's a really handy tutorial and I'll show you multiple different ways. If you're in a time budget, we'll show you quick ways. If you want a more professional look, I'll show you the more precise ways. So it's a really handy tutorial for that, and I'll link that in the description. So what we're going to do is I'm going to quickly make a selection using the pen tool of the teeth. Lovely, so there I go, make a selection. Now again, the more time you spend on creating a selection, the better the outcome and the end result, and the more professional your work will look. So do take that into consideration, that the more time you spend on your work, the better it will look. So don't try and rush anything if you can, unless you're on a budget. So what we'll do is I've made a selection like so. I've made a path tool like so. So what I'm going to do is double click, and I'm just going to turn it into a selection. So I'm going to confirm, save the path, Command click on path 3, and then there we go, we've turned it into a selection. Now I'm going to go back to my original layer. We're going to go to select, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an ever so slight feather. So I'm going to go to select, modify, and feather. And again, like I was saying earlier, it will add a sense of realism to your photo. There's very, very sharp edges don't really exist within photography, as there's always going to be a slight feather. Even a 1 pixel feather will add a real sense of realism and a sense of organic look to your photo. But in this particular case, I think I'm going to add a 2 pixel feather, as you can see the edges here are a lot blurrier. So adding in a more feather at the edges will again make it look a lot more realistic. So now what I want to do is just to remove all of that yellowy staining look that you can see on the teeth. And we can do this really easily by creating a hue and saturation layer. So we're going to go down to our hue and our adjustment layers icon. We're going to go and select hue and saturation, which is found near the middle. Now hue and saturation is split into 3 different sliders. We've got hue, which is the type of color, so red, green, blue, orange, etc. We've got saturation, which is the purity or brightness of that color. And then we've got the last one, which is either the brightness or darkness of the color. Now it's called HSL, which is the HSL adjustment layer, or as a short term, hue and saturation. Now I've created a tutorial all about color and how to understand color and utilize color in your photography. So go give that a watch if you are interested in color grading. But it basically just goes into more explaining of how saturation and value, which is another word for lightness, takes into consideration when you are applying effects in Photoshop. But with this particular effect, all we're going to be using is the saturation layer. Now, because of the yellow in the teeth, we want to remove that yellow and change it to white. And the easiest way to do this is simply just by removing the yellow. So what we'll do is just going to take the saturation and just remove the saturation. So we're going to take the saturation here and we're going to move it to the left. And the more we move it to the left, the whiter the teeth will become. Now, if you remove them all the way to the left, you've completely desaturated it, and it will just be completely white and black, and it won't look too realistic. So you want an ever so slight yellowy tinge to it to make that effect look realistic. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in somewhere around, let's say, -70. Lovely. But as you can see, it's still looking quite dark. So what we need to do is just change the lightness slider, and we'll move that up ever so slightly. And that will brighten all of the shadows and increase the highlights. So we'll go for something like so. And again, because these are sliders and you're changing it in a non-destructive way, which means you can adapt it anytime you like, it means you can always change it after the fact. So if you're finding it's a little bit too bright after you've changed a bunch of other effects, you can always just adapt the sliders accordingly. So if we're going to do is I'm going to add a little bit more yellow in, like so. Lovely. So if we zoom out, we do the before and after, there we go guys. So that is how you can whiten teeth. So far on this tutorial, I've showed you how to fix blemishes, I've showed you how to enhance skin, I've shown you in how to enhance freckles. I've also showed you how to enhance lips, and then now I've showed you enhance teeth. The last thing I'm going to show you how to enhance is hair, which is something you can add volume and colour to it. So let's do that now. Right guys, so now we're going to be enhancing the hair. So we've done all the other features of the face, skin, eyes, nose. Well, now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how you can add volume to the hair, add colour, and also add contrast via dodging and burning. So we're going to open up one of the last photos, which is number 7. And we open up with this great photo of a model, and you can see she's got lovely blonde hair. And what we're going to do is we're going to add more of a richer tone to it. We're also going to add volume and contrast. So the first thing we're going to do is add volume. So what we're going to do firstly is to duplicate the background layer. And again, this will allow us to go back to the original photo just in case we make any mistakes. So we're going to press Command J on our keyboard, and that will duplicate the photo. So I'm going to rename this volume, like so. Now what we want to do is we want to turn it into a smart object, and this will allow us to create smart filters, as we're going to be using filters to add volume. So we're going to right click on that layer, and we're going to go down to convert to smart object. And again, just to say, this will allow us to create smart filters, so we can always adapt the filters accordingly depending on your personal preference after the fact. So say you've made lots of volume, but then you were like, oh, that's a bit too much. Instead of creating a new layer, we can just bring it down slightly because it will allow us to change it afterwards. So we're going to go to filter, and we're going to go to liquify. Now liquify is a really cool tool, and I'm definitely going to probably make a future tutorial on this because you can create such cool effects using the liquify tool. So what the liquify tool does is it basically allows you to move pixels around, hence the name liquify, by kind of pushing it and pulling it, and you can increase or decrease sizes. And in the new 2020, it also has face detection, which is really handy. So what we want to do first is we want to freeze the face, because we don't want to elongate the face or create any warping, because that will definitely look odd. So what we want to do first, as you can see, we've got the left hand side tools panel here. We want to go to the one, so you can see here, where it says freeze mask tool, or it's F on your keyboard. And what we want to do is zoom in. We just want to paint, so it's red, where the area we want to freeze. Now you don't have to be too precise, but you do have to cover all of the main areas, such as the nose and especially the eyes, because that's something that will definitely look bizarre. So we'll go for something like that. So once you've created a freeze mask, this is now where we can start to really stretch out the hair to create this effect, but you do want to be careful of the background. So we're going to go to our very top tool, which is called Forward Warp, and what it will basically do is it will drag sections of the photo. So we're going to click, hold, and as you can see, it's just increasing the volume of the hair. But if you have a nice large brush, it will increase it as well as the background. So you can be nice and precise with it. So we'll just drag it out ever so slightly. Try not to affect the background too much, but try to add volume where you can. So we'll go for something like so. Now what's handy with the liquify tool is you've got this preview button. So you can click the before and after, and as you can see, we've added in a great amount of volume. Now you can always zoom in a little bit closer and just add volume like so, but just try and be careful of the background, because if you have any straight poles and you use the liquify tool, it's naturally going to warp those poles. So it might be something that you might want to freeze in post. So we'll go for something like so. Lovely. So if we do the before and after, that's looking really natural, and the hair has really boosted in size. So all we need to do is simply press OK. And because it's a smart object, all of those layers and all of the effects that we've just made will all be saved. So if you do want to go back and change it afterwards, you can. And that's something that a smart object is great for. And not using a smart object will allow you to not create a smart filter, which means it's burned into that layer. and it's a destructive way of working. So if you did want to change anything afterwards, you'd have to start from scratch. So do take that into consideration when you are applying smart filters. It's a really quick way because it allows you to change things afterwards. So now we've created volume, now we want to do is add in some color. And we can do this by creating a gradient map. So we're going to go to our adjustment layers icon and we're going to go and select gradient map. Now gradient map is a way of creating a gradient between the darkest to the brightest pixels. So the brightest pixels we found on the right hand side of the gradient, and the left hand side will be where all the darker pixels have been found. So we'll go ahead and select the gradient by simply clicking on the gradient tool here, which is this long bar, and a gradient editor will appear. Now what we want to do is, depending on what colors you choose, you want to make sure again the left hand side is dark and the right hand side is bright. And usually what I like to do is add in a saturated tone in the middle to add kind of a brightness color to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for more of an orangey kind of gingery look. So I'm going to go for select an orange, something like so. So I'm going to select a hue of 23 and I'm just going to create a dark tone to this. Lovely. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a middle one. I'm going to make sure the location's at 50, which is bang in the middle because it's 50%. And with this particular one, I'm going to choose a nice bright orange. Lovely. And then with the last one, I'm going to choose a nice bright orange, but I'm going to choose a yellow, a nice bright orange like so. Lovely. So once we've done that, as you can see, we've created that effect, but it's affecting the whole image and we just want it to affect the hair. So all we need to do is go to our gradient map. Again, guys, press Command I to invert all of colors. So that will invert all of the layer mask from white to black, to reveal and change it into a transparent one. We'll go to our brush tool, and then all we will need to do is again, just paint in over the hair like so. Now I find that this orange is very bright. So all we'll need to do is simply just drop the opacity down slightly. So we'll go over the rest of the hair like so. And try and be careful not to go over any of the skin tones or any other area. And we can change and smile it up later on using a smaller brush. So we'll go over like so. So as you can see, we have completely changed the hair color, but it still looks really natural. So we can now go in with the smaller part of the brush and just go into the small sections of the hair. Now you can spend a lot of time getting this absolutely pixel perfect, but for this tutorial, I'm just going to do it quite quickly just to keep it nice and short. Lovely. This is looking great. Lovely. So as you can see, we have increased the color, but it's still looking a little bit flat. So all you need to do is probably just, you can always increase the color, but I'm probably going to decrease it slightly. I'm going to go for around 35% for that. So if we do the before and after, there we go. So we've increased volume and we've increased color. So all we'll need to do now is to add contrast via dodging and burning. And this is a really easy tool to use. And we're going to increase dodge and burn, but we're going to do a non-destructive dodge and burn. So we're going to use curves adjustment layer to do this. So we're going to go to our adjustment layers icon and we're going to create curves. And we're going to call this one burn. So this will be all the shadows. And then we're going to create another adjustment layer. So we're going to go to our curves again, and we're going to call this one dodge. So we've got a dodge layer and we've got a burn layer. So instead of burning it onto that layer and creating a destructive way using the dodge and burn tool that you can find in the tools panel, we're going to use the dodge and burn tool non-destructively using the curves adjustment layer. So firstly, we're going to do a burn. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our curves adjustment layer and we're going to drop it down by a third. So go for something like that. And then we're going to drop the mid-tones down a bit lower as well. Lovely. And now what you want to do is you just want it to affect the sections of the hair. So we're going to double click and we're going to remove it from the whites. So we're going to go for something like so. And we're going to press Alt to again change that and break it into a gradient. Lovely. So as you can see, it's affecting the entire image, but we've added in a nice amount of dodging and burning to the hair. So all we will need to do now is use the same layer mask that we've used for the gradient map. We're going to use it for the burn. So we're going to press Alt and we're going to place it on there. You'll get a replace layer mask icon up here, but all you need to do is click yes. So all it will do now is it will just affect it onto the skin tones. And as you can see, we've added in a nice amount of darkening. Now what you can also do is change it to multiply, and then all you need to do is just reduce the saturation to add in a nice effect. And all you'll need to do now is just do the same for the brightness tool. So we're going to increase it this time. Go for something like that. We're going to double click to bring up our layer stylizing box. Again, we want to remove it from the shadows this time because we're dodging the photo, which is brightening. So we're going to take it to the right. And then again, we're going to split that apart. You're pressing Alt on your keyboard. Lovely. And then all you'll need to use is just simply use the same layer mask that we used for the gradient. So we'll press Alt, drag it upwards, hover it over the layer mask and just simply press yes. So if we do the before and after, as you can see, we've added in a great amount of dodging, burning, color and volume. And you can always double check to make sure you are happy with the result. So I think what I'm probably going to do is just increase the brightness slightly of the burn and then increase the highlights slightly. Go for something like so. Lovely, and I am really liking this effect. So again, I'm just going to show you the before and after. Wow, what a difference. And there we go, guys. So that is how you can create volume, color, and contrast in hair and really enhance it in Photoshop. Lovely. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you can apply all of those effects that I've just showed you, plus a few extra effects to really make your photos pop. So the last two effects I'm going to show you is how to enhance colors in your photo and also how to create a vignette. And I'm going to create a vignette using the Camera Raw filter. So if you go ahead and open the last photo, which is photo 8, as you can see, I've already applied 3 different techniques that I've just talked about. So if we go ahead to, this is the original photo that I took. If we go ahead and click the skin softening, as you can see, we've got the lovely soft skin in the photo. And then if I go ahead and click the enhanced warm portrait, this is just a color grading effect that I used. And then if we go and click the eyes, as you can see, I've enhanced the eyes using the technique that I've just talked about. Now I'm going to show you how you can enhance the colors and also add in a vignette. So firstly, what you're going to want to do is go down to your adjustment layers icon and you want to go and click selective color. Now when you're in selective color has 2 different types of color bands. Firstly, you've got the colors, which are split from reds, yellows, greens, etc. But then you've also got the sliders. So the color that you select in the top is the color that you're changing, and then you can change the value of the other colors found within those color bands. So for instance, in the reds, if you want to increase reds, you would decrease cyan, because cyan is the opposite of red. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the amount of color in each of the color bands by decreasing the opposite color. So I'll make it a little bit more simple for you. You can just follow along to what I'm doing. So with the reds, I want to increase red. So I'm going to decrease cyan. Next, I'm going to go to yellows and I want to increase yellows. Now handy, there's a yellow slider. So all I need to do is just increase the yellows. Now I'm going to go down to green. Now there isn't a green slider, but there is a magenta slider. And as magenta is the opposite of yellow, I'm going to decrease magenta and that'll increase green. Then I'll go to cyan. And all I need to do, as you can see, there's a cyan slider. So I'll just increase cyan like so. Then there is a blue slider. There isn't a blue slider. So I'm going to, as you can see, yellow is the opposite of blue. So I'm going to decrease the amount of yellow, which will increase the amount of blue. Then I'm going to go to magentas. And as you can see, there's a magenta slider. So I'll increase magentas like And then lastly, we've got white, blacks and neutrals, and I often leave those. It's because they're to do with the highlights, shadows and midtones, where all of the colours are found. Now, as you can see, we've increased the colours lovely and really enhanced it, but I find it's a little bit too bright. So all I'm going to do is simply drop that effect down to 50%. And as you can see, overall, the colours are all enhanced, and it's a really quick way of just enhancing the colours. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put that in a group, and I'm just going to call this Enhance Colours. Lovely. So if we do the before and after, that's worked really nice, and it's a subtle way of just increasing the colours in your photo, especially the vibrance. And it's a good way, instead of using the hue and saturation layer and just increasing the saturation, we're actually moving the colours around. So we're not increasing saturation at all, we're just simply removing colours from certain colours and increasing colours in others to create this look. So we're just moving colours around, we're not increasing or decreasing saturation, which is why it looks so natural. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you how to create a vignette. And there's a really quick way we can create a vignette using the camera raw filter. So the first thing we need to do is we're just going to need to group all of that together. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call this photo 1. Lovely. So what we're going to want to do now is just duplicate that group. So we're going to press Command J, and then we're going to press Command E, and Command E will merge all of the layers. And the non-shortcut way of doing this is right clicking and going down to Merge Group, and that will merge all of those photos into a single group. So then what you can do is just ungroup that last one by pressing Shift Command G, and as you can see, we've got a photo with all of those effects applied in a single photo. So this is great for adding into the camera raw filter, adding in just final little touches. So we're going to go to find the camera raw filter, we're going to go to Filter and Camera Raw Filter. Now, if you've never used the camera raw filter before, it is an incredibly powerful tool in Photoshop, and it's very similar to Lightroom, but it has a lot more effects, and it also has the power of Photoshop behind it. So it's a really good way of editing photos, and I'm going to be making a next Saturday, which is a week's time. I'm actually going to be making a making a tutorial all about the camera raw filter and all of its powers and possibilities that you have within it. But today we're just going to be focusing on creating a vignette. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the effects panel here, and as you can see, we've got post crop vignette. So all we'll need to do is just take the vignette over to the left, and we'll increase it like so. And as you can see, because the model is dead center in the photo, it will use the kind of luminosity of the model, and it will darken everything else around it, creating the model as the centerpiece of the photo. And because we're using the camera raw filter vignette instead of using the vignette in Photoshop, we have a lot more control. So we have control over the midpoint, the roundness and the feather, which is really handy, and you can create a real customizable vignette by doing this. So I'm going to increase the midpoint like so, and I'm also going to increase the roundness to create a nice round vignette. And then I'm also going to increase the feather to add a more kind of a gradient look to the vignette. Lovely. So if we do the before and after, I'm really happy with the results. So all you'll need to do is simply press OK. And what that'll do is that will apply to the photo. So now if you ever increase the crop, because it's a post-crop vignette, doesn't matter where you increase it, it will always be there as a smart filter. And there we go, guys. So that is how you can enhance colors and also create a vignette in Photoshop. Brilliant. And there we go, guys. So that is my masterclass tutorial on how to master and create beautiful portrait edits in Photoshop. Again, guys, if you want to like, comment and subscribe to my channel, it really, really does help my channel grow. Also, if you want to hit the bell notification, so you don't miss any of my latest content. But until next time, guys, keep creating.